Thank you all so much for attending. We really appreciate the opportunity to discuss this topic. So I'll start first and introduce myself. I'm Dr. Lisa Nesneski, and my experience in the cancer world, of course, as a pharmacist. I was the person who, before we had laminar flow hoods, put too much pressure in a vial of 5-FU and had it aerosolize it to my eyes. I was very young then, but nevertheless, we're going to talk about the emotional journey of the cancer patient. And my last job before, 2 jobs ago, I ran a cancer center for a hospital. So I had pharmacy report to me, lab, medical oncology, and radiation oncology and research. So it really all fit nicely under my purview. So I got to see cancer therapy from both sides. I had a minor skin cancer, I had Mohs surgery, so yes, I am also a survivor, but not nearly to the extent of some of the folks here on the panel. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
So my name is Layla Morkos-Zissis, and I'm honored to be here with these panelists, incredibly esteemed. I myself am a breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in November 2020, and I'm really excited that we're talking about this as I'm having a medical menopause hot flash up here as we speak. Very uncomfortable and creating some emotions over here. But I am a professional certified coach. I call myself a professional evolution expert because after having gone through what I've been through and being able to serve clients, we are evolving our clients and working with clients. So I am a coach. And I have a women's organization called Like-Minded Ladies. We have chapters both in New Orleans and on the Gulf Coast. And one of the initiatives that we're doing is trying to get some cancer robes for one of the hospitals. So I'm also faculty at Georgetown University working with students working on getting their board certifications for their health and wellness coaching. And I'm also a mental health coach certified as well, and we are backfilling quite a bit because of the therapy shortage that is out there right now, as well as the stigma with therapy. Coaching has less of a stigma than therapy for some people and for some cultures. But I do have a podcast as well, and lots of other ventures in the pipeline, so I'm just excited and happy to be here. I'm happy to be alive, right? Yeah, so thank you. And happy Mardi Gras. I'm here with my bestie.
I think you just speak.
Okay. My name is Robert Chistel. I'm Professor Emeritus of Pathology, Environmental Health Science, and Radiation Oncology at UCLA, previously at Harvard. And I have 16 patents and 6 companies in healthcare. It's my mission in life to make all creatures in the world healthy, beautiful, and sane. And I can treat almost all, until now, uncurable diseases. And I have lots of things for cancer, and I can cure almost all mental diseases. So I think my expertise is quite up the alley for this panel. And whenever you want, I tell you all about what I do for cancer and all about what I do for all mental diseases, maybe later in the discussion. And anybody who wants to connect with me, I'm happy to connect.
Hi, my name is Rob Hedquist, and I have my own company where I'm a psychological performance coach. So I work with executives, I work with leaders, I work with organizations to help individuals and organizations shift their mindset and their perspective and move more towards the positive solutions that are out there. I'm also a breast cancer survivor as well, so I'm in the 1%, as I like to say, of men that have an opportunity to experience what so many women have experienced, and I have a long family history of breast cancer. So my mom passed away of breast cancer, and I have 2 sisters that have also been subject to breast cancer. One of them has metastatic disease right now. So I know the disease very well, and I know the support from a number of different angles, myself and my mom and my sister. So it's a real honor to be up here with this panel today and to be talking about this important issue. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Barry Warrington. The accent's from New Zealand, but I base myself out of Miami. I've set up an integrative oncology clinic in Thailand where we supported cancer patients through a variety of modalities and helping them get a positive mindset in dealing with cancer, among other things. So my background is more in managing those facilities until our family was struck with BRCA gene, so keeping on the breast cancer flow. And my mother recently just passed away from a brain cancer, which was meant to end her life in 2 weeks, but she survived 10 more years. So when it comes to support and being on boots on the ground, it's great to be up here with the panel and looking forward to answering some questions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Soumyata Saxena, and I have a background working in cancer research. So I used to work for Methodist Research Institute Cancer Oncology. So we would basically treat kidney and prostate cancer patients. Of course, with other bladder, testes, and if it has like spread anywhere else. So I used to work in data analysis, working on manuscripts. So I have publications in PubMed and NIH on cancer research. And then, so from Methodist Research, I worked also for University of Texas oncology research. And so I've seen the conventional side of cancer because I worked in oncology, seeing patients come in through chemo, radiation, drug treatments. I've seen all of it, the clinical trials, the process with the IRB and everything. And so destiny would have it after some time I just didn't like what was happening to cancer patients. It just didn't align with my values anymore. And so I said, I want to quit this job, And after that, I got cancer. So I had ovarian cancer. And it was pretty bad. So, but because of my background in holistic science and, coming from India and coming from, vegetarian diet already with spices and whatnot, thanks to my grandma, I already had pretty good understanding of the power of food, especially plant-based diet and spices and Ayurveda. And then I had the knowledge of the conventional cancer system and how it works. So I was able to say, I don't want to take the same route, even though my ovarian cancer was pretty bad at the time. And, so I just went for the surgery. After the 6th day, we were out. The doctors wanted me to do chemo, radiation, and they were like, you will not make it for 5 years, and if you don't, I just said, okay, we will see. And I just said goodbye to the doctors. And I came home, started making the recipes like my beloved grandma used to make for me when I was a kid, when I was super healthy, going back to the Ayurvedic science of India, and also using the nutritional knowledge that I had learned in America of whole food, plant-based diet, and combining both. And my body came into balance because the doctors had told me you will not have your periods for 8 months. Doctors just say things which they're not supposed to say. They are not gods, for God's sake, So it is like, oh, you will not have your periods. You won't live for 5 years. And I said, okay, we'll see. I just went home, started cooking, home-cooked meals, and my body was perfectly in balance. And I had my periods in 2 months instead of 8 months, like doctor. And that was, I'm going to be 11 years cancer-free in May. So thank you, guys. Thank you. Yes, it's going to be 11 years. When I had my surgery, it was in 2014. 2014 May, and so it will be 11 this year. And so I just thought, I have seen enough, and I know so much, and I have done publications as well, so why not teach people the truth? Because we have been so denied from the truth because of the big pharma, the money that the word cancer makes. It's $1 trillion industry and the corruption. So, and I was like, this is so easy, And people don't have to lose their arm and leg to support themselves through cancer treatments, and they don't make it, and the family has to pay afterwards for them. So I started launching my YouTube channel where I started teaching people how to cook plant-based recipes with my special knowledge of Indian Ayurvedic science. Spices, we come from a culture with a lot of spices, garlic, ginger, and turmeric, and things like that. And using plant-based diet, pure ingredients, organic ingredients. So I launched that, and I launched my business, The Garden Recipe, and it goes globally where the newsletter goes out, health, holistic articles on medicinal herbs. They're educating people on different things like fasting. So it is a combination of lifestyle habits, practices, and what you eat. Recipes go out as well. Then I run courses for women to prevent or heal cancer, and I have coached cancer patients, and I continue doing that. So I have a YouTube channel, and I have a full organization that has a newsletter, courses running, and more to launch this year. So that's what I do. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
On your
Thank you.
survivorship.
Thank
That's
you, thank you.
wonderful. So the first question I have for the panel, if it's not too invasive, could you tell us a little bit about how you felt when you first got that diagnosis?
Who wants to? Me? Whoever wants to go. I think. So my journey is pretty unique because I was always very intuitive from the very beginning. So as I've written on my website also, and I shared last year when I was at a health conference, I actually had a history of ovarian cysts when I was young at the college with your friends, eating the cheapest food and chicken and KFC, and you don't ever think twice and having like dairy milk and stuff. So I just had really bad habits. So from having a perfectly healthy body that my grandma raised me, I messed it up completely, very bad during all those years, and eating a meat-based diet and whatnot. And that's when I had ovarian cysts. And I have to absolutely say I had a lot of trauma. I had a lot of trauma, a lot of personal struggles, and even with my parents. Not a blame game, just with my parents. My grandma raised me. So I did have a lot of trauma and stress. It was just ongoing in my life, Okay. And after the ovarian cyst, after 10 years from that, is when I started having bleeding. So I had bleeding nonstop for 3 years, And when I say nonstop, it was like nonstop. I was working at the University of Texas, and it was just like nonstop. But I spiritually knew that this is what my body needs to do, because I believed in my body more than anybody else. Right. And I didn't tell anybody, because telling your family and friends usually means their advice, unwarranted advice, when they cannot even live their life without cabinet of pharmaceutical medicines. Don't give me advice, Dan, because you cannot even walk from here to there without panting. So don't give me advice, Dan. And I was living very active. I rescued dogs, and I was walking. By God's grace, I was very healthy weight, healthy skin, hair. So I was like, I'm going to let my body do what it needs to do. I was bleeding, and for me, it was a transformative experience to bleed, to see my own blood coming out and new blood forming, and God sustained me. I kept working. I was very active. After the 3 years, my cancer, it grew, okay?
Yes.
So, I was looking pregnant. And I let it grow because my understanding was my body is pushing to heal. It always pushes itself to fight for life. It's not trying to die ever, It's a natural law of the body. So I just said, okay, now it has grown enough, and it was blocking my, the flow of the blood. Yeah, yes. And I just said, this is the time to go, and just what I wanted. I went to the hospital. They said, you have to do surgery. I said, perfect, go for it. So they did the surgery, took it out, and I said, then they wanted chemo radiation, and that's when it was official, like my family and friends, everybody found out, like, okay, this is cancer,
Sure.
I already knew it was cancer because of my intuition and knowledge. So they took it out, and my surgery was at Bantop, wonderful staff, wonderful doctor. They took it out, and I said, after that, I just went home. 6 days, they said, you can go home if you want. If you don't want chemo drugs, you can go home. We came home on the 7th day. I never went back.
That's really interesting. That's a very clear and powerful choice that you made for yourself.
Thank you.
So let's go back to the question.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you were diagnosed, if you choose to talk about that?
Me?
These guys.
Oh, sure, I'll be happy to. I think that, I don't know how to describe it. You go through a myriad of emotions. Like you start with, I think, disbelief.
Right.
Is where you probably begin, and then you get into sadness, and then more disbelief, and then fear and panic. So
you're
there's
pendulating.
there's a whole myriad of emotions that occur, and I think that that's one of the challenges that you have when you're trying to provide support to somebody that's been diagnosed with cancer. Where are they at on their journey? What type of support do they need, and how do you best provide that support? Interesting, I had a wonderful medical team, from my surgeon to my oncologist, but, I was thinking about this in preparation for the panel. I don't think that at any point in time did anybody ever ask me, what emotional support do you need? What type of mental health support do you need in this journey? It just never came up for discussion, and I don't know that at the time I would have been open to it, if I'm quite honest about it. But I think looking back retrospectively, hindsight being what it is, it would have been nice had somebody asked me that question, because it would have made me, at least put me into the mode to begin to think about it, because it didn't really jump out at me, hey, maybe you need to get some professional help to deal with the diagnosis and the ongoing procedures that you're going to need in order to be able to get cancer free. And so, that journey was, back in 21.
That's
so
not so long ago.
no, 21's pretty
Yeah.
for me anyways, it's pretty recent. So that was my experience as it relates to this. Is a myriad of emotions, and I know I had people around me that could support me, but we could get into the whole discussion with regards to male versus female dynamics and how men show up and how women show up, and a lot of the stereotypical kind of mental juggernauts that we all put ourselves through, so to speak. And so it was an interesting diagnosis for me and an interesting journey. So for sure.
Thank you. How about you, Layla?
I said I don't have time for this. That was the no. I really did it.
I like that.
No, I mean, so so my best friend and I, we started a tradition. We would go get our mammograms together every year and then make a day of it, go cocktail, go have some fun. So the last time we did it was in 2019, and then COVID started, right? My mammogram in 2019 was totally clear. Everything was fine. We enjoyed our cocktails, had a wonderful day. Come 2020, we could not go do mammograms by ourselves. We were in the middle of COVID, so I was going to just brush it off and not even go do it. My OBGYN was like, Layla, just go do your mammogram. Went to go do my mammogram, and within 1 year, my entire left breast had to get removed. Cancer had gone into my lymph nodes. When I found out about my diagnosis, I was actually with my husband, who had just gotten diagnosed. Typical fashion for us. Got to have humor, guys, as well. That's a big strength. But he had just gotten diagnosed, and we were coming down the elevator from the hospital with a spastic esophagus. So we were leaving his gastroenterology appointment, and we got the call in the car, and it was goofy. The car was like connecting to the phone, and the phone was connecting to this, and we hear your, you have breast cancer, and we're like, what? So it was just, that was my experience. And when we were driving home and just listening to my advocate, we were both numb. We just were quiet. We were in complete disbelief. And then the emotions come. You're in disbelief, then you're in sadness. You wonder if you're going to die. And then, for me, it was a big double whammy because I had gone through years of fertility treatments unsuccessfully. And I think that plus grief was the main reason that caused me to have this. And I just had a client text me, 37 years old, one of my coaching clients. She rung the bell today at Memorial Sloan Kettering. So, up here, being a cancer survivor and being there for your clients is an incredibly powerful relationship.
It is.
And it feeds you and it gives to you. So that was my experience. But in a nutshell, really, what fueled me was, I do not have time for this, and I'm going to kick this shit's ass. And I did.
And she did, yes. Absolutely. The little bit of tears that you had there made flashback to when my mother-in-law was diagnosed with lung cancer. She smoked since she was 17, and we're in the hospital room, and I took that packet of cigarettes, and she said, I'm going to quit. I said, how about now? And I threw them in the trash. So she had 5 good years because her son and I decided that we would make whatever she wanted to do fun and exciting. So she wanted to go on a trip, no problem. He'll drive her to the boat, whatever those are called, cruises. So having family around is helpful. I became her major caregiver, but my son had an experience. He was in nursing school, so he moved into the house with them. And, when your white blood cells are low and you are really feeling crappy, he recognized that, got grandma treatment that she needed. And so I'm remembering all of those feelings that I had being her caregiver, that her son was of no use. I eventually divorced that guy. So her daughter lived in Chicago, came for a fun weekend, dragging her everywhere that she wanted to go. And I'm thinking, she shouldn't be out and about. You know, her counts are low. She could get an infection of sorts. So when that happened, I realized I needed to step up, and she really relied on me. And I was with her through her last breath. And that was truly an honor to watch her pass. Her kids weren't there. I was there. So I think back on that experience. I think that helped me when I went to Wheeling Hospital. And Wheeling Hospital, West Virginia, not Illinois. One of the things that we did was develop a nurse navigator program. Did you all have navigators? Do you all know what nurse navigators for cancer are? They are specially trained in their particular disease, but they coordinate everything from labs to x-rays to you name it, even appointments with their regular doctors and dentists. Whatever they needed, they were their go-to person. And that took a lot of pressure off the person, knowing that they had someone in the medical field that they could go to and talk to. A lot of times people going through cancer won't talk about it with their family. But yes, with the nurse navigators, they were able to open up and really have their feelings addressed right there. So I'm really proud of that program. I'm sure it's dismantled now because everything is different. But
on that note, my nurse navigator, she actually is a cancer survivor. My oncologist had cancer. My breast surgeon had cancer.
Wow.
Yeah, and just for people who, I had stage 1, and I still had to get a mastectomy, radiation, and chemotherapy for 9 months. So, I mean, it's everywhere. It's shocking. I mean, it really is. So those nurse navigator programs are really helpful because when you are diagnosed, they start giving you books, and they give you this, and they give you that, and they give you this, and you're just, I didn't even know what my diagnosis was, I don't think, until I was well into my chemo journey. I was like, what do I have now? HER2 negative, ER positive, what is that? Like, you're just so overwhelmed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you get that diagnosis, I think overwhelm is one of those emotions that comes on because, first of all, if you're not in the medical field, you have no idea what's going on. And I've seen it where they have a diagnosis and the next day they're in surgery and they don't even know what happened. They didn't have any time to process that. So having a contact outside of the family, I think, is also important. So would you like to speak to how your family dynamics were?
Well, my marriage basically disintegrated in the middle of it. So
I'm so sorry.
That happens. My
happens a lot,
acupuncturist told me that marriages end.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
So, which was really unfortunate on a number of different levels. But what I really wanted to talk about was kind of, I didn't really have a good understanding of what health equity really meant. And disparagement
Yes.
in the health sector until I was diagnosed with a disease that primarily affects women. And I was handed all the patient ed materials, and they were all for women. I was like, wow. And so from my perspective, it told me a lot about how unequitable the system is from both a cultural standpoint and even a sexist standpoint,
Sure.
and how we don't give enough attention across the board. And so it really highlighted that particular piece for me and really brought home the need that we have to develop decent materials for all the different individuals that may actually be suffering from any particular one disease.
Well, and I will say on that note that my business partner and I, we decided to go ahead and we're going to have a guest. All of you, we would love to have you all on our podcast, but I do have a podcast called Breast Cancer Unleashed. And one of the reasons why we did start this podcast is because a lot of the physicians, they weren't actually talking to us about the things, like they didn't have all the answers for us. There is now an integrative physician that, and I'm in New Orleans, so I went through the Ochsner Health System. They're now partnered with MD Anderson. I got all of my second opinions at MD Anderson in Houston, and decided to do treatment in New Orleans because essentially their recommendations were the same. So I just lost my train of thought. That's part of cancer. I'm so sorry. What was I just talking about? The podcast. So one of the reasons that we wanted to do this podcast is because we wanted to be raunchy. We wanted to be raw. We wanted to talk about all of the disgusting things that people are embarrassed to talk to their doctors about. We have podcasts about the emotional toll on the families. We've had psychiatrists on. We've had psychologists on. And we even, we go everywhere from talking about that to, all of the nastiness that's going on here and CBD and all the things. And, really it is for women. And I'm excited that you're the first man with breast cancer that I've ever met. And my journey, I'm 50 years old. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Schiessel,
Okay, so I fit in this group of
use your microphone.
Okay, so I fit in this group because I don't have a prostate, but I choose not to talk about this at all. Now, let me tell you what I do for cancer and for mental health. So, this is my 15th patent. My chemical is an anti-cancer agent. It stops the proliferation of cancer cells and it prevents cancer. So, I have people on Lymphoma Watch and PSA Watch. None of them developed cancer yet. And so I can deal with stage 1 and beginning of stage 2. And for stage 3 and 4, it gets rid of the side effect of chemotherapy. And 33% of all people die from the side effect of chemotherapy, not from the cancer itself. Then the cancer is smaller than expected if it's cut out, because it doesn't proliferate further. And the second chemo is no problem. And it has very surprising effects. That's also why I'm in hospices right now, because I had a 68-year-old woman with rectal cancer stage 4, metastasis all over her body. She already was thin and frail to start off with, and then she got chemo, which pushed her over the edge. She became incoherent, couldn't eat, couldn't swallow anymore, and was kind of in coma. And then they asked me whether I can do something with that patient. I told them I have no idea. Let's try something. It's a clinical trial. So the nurse put my chemical in her mouth. 2 days later, she gets up from her deathbed, goes to the fridge and starts eating, and gained 8 pounds. Wow. So as long as they're still breathing, I can help them. So actually in hospices, this is absolutely wonderful, because they can still talk to their grandkids, they're still hungry, they can still participate, they don't die from starving and in pain, and at some point something gives in, either the brain or the heart, and they pass quietly and happily away. And now what I can do for mental diseases, I can cure actually all the mental diseases, whether it's ADHD, PTSD, schizophrenia, bipolar, Huntington, Parkinson, Alzheimer, dementia, addictions, aggression, whatever you want. So anyway, anybody who wants to connect with me, I'm happy to, and I know actually the wealthiest people in the world. Thank you.
So you are the true scientist on the panel as well as...
Yes, I do clinical trials worldwide, and I ship my chemical worldwide. I just talked to a huge consortium of cancer doctors in India, and they want to invite me there. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Keep up the good work.
Sure.
Yeah, it's definitely needed in the world.
Yes.
So Barry, what do you have?
So I was working overseas when my phone rang and Mum's got cancer. She's got 2 weeks to live.
Wow.
So I wasn't the diagnose of receiving, but I was receiving the news. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think for the family, you just don't know where to go. And mine was anger, like boiling over anger. But but I would say that what I learned in running the integrative oncology business is, I'm not saying that emotions cause cancer, but there's definitely not helping you beat cancer if you're keeping emotions trapped inside. So running that integrative oncology center, we saw a full spectrum of emotions come out. And I actually remember an Irish guy, and if any of you know Irish people, they like 4-letter words and none of them you can say in church. And he got up in my face and he got really angry, and then he went for a walk and he said, I need a psychiatrist. I think I know what caused my cancer. So I would say that the mental journey, the physical journey is all connected. We try in conventional medicine to separate things. In holistic medicine, we try to bring things together, and we often have a conflict there because we have this line and we have this line, and the distance between here and here can be very big. Correct. So I would say for anyone going through the journey, and unfortunately just from those statistics, if we haven't already, it will come up. Being able to be there as that support and talk out everything is very important. Yes. Because it can be something so small or it can be something so big. So that's my personal
I agree with you. You know, having someone to talk to that's not your family, you know, to process all what's happening to you in the moment. I would agree with you that we should include those folks, the mental health folks, in things like tumor board, where we go A to Z on what are the options for this patient, and they put the pathology up, and there's lots of discussion, and it's very interdepartmental, but the nurse navigators are there, of course, but they've got other responsibilities. It certainly would be nice to have someone be available to talk things through. And I think anger is probably one of the earliest emotions. I think your response by saying, I don't have time for this. That's like an anger response.
It was so aggravating, and I went to one support group. One. It was so depressing, and I was just like, these are not my people.
Yeah.
Like, it was terrible. I was like, yeah, I'm not going back to that. That was awful. They were depressed. They were in their disease. And because I know emotion, because I'm a coach, because I'm trained in this, because I know what evidence-based, and I use this on myself, you know, one of the biggest things that we all had to step into was really the acceptance of this, right? And really that internal shift. But, you know, my husband, he ended up, you know, relapsing during my cancer. He quit his job. He needed his own mental health instability. Now he's just fine and everything. But he was the one that was really even struggling more, it seems, than I was. So it's not just mental health for the patients, it is mental health for the entire family.
Yeah, we used to say at Wheeling, if the patient has cancer, the family has cancer. You know, it extends its tentacles out to everyone in the family. So it's oftentimes, if you're the caregiver, you know, this gets me to respite care, that you can really burn yourself out from that. And so one of the things that eventually I would like to do is have a respite care center where people could bring mom along who has the disease, and you take a good nap, you know. So the patient is well cared for, and you are also caring for yourself. So
I just want to add a point to that. So when I went through, you know, as I said, it wasn't really in my case like a cancer diagnosis and going through emotions, because I already had 3 years of bleeding and a history of ovarian cyst. I didn't tell anybody. There are only 2 people who knew about my bleeding, and one was my best friend and one of my aunts, okay? Because I knew just telling and sharing this is happening would be an influx of unnecessary advice, unwarranted advice from people who can barely take care of their health and do not know health at the root level. And I was not interested in conventional drugs or radiation to kill myself. I want to live, and you know, health is our natural state of the body. So I wanted to just keep everybody out. So in my case, I was just pulling my own wagon, and that was my peace of mind. But having worked in cancer research and having gone through this experience and knowing that how much support cancer patients need, because I would see them coming, you know, looking fairly healthy, But by the time they would leave the chemo or hospital, they're almost dead or skeleton-like, okay? So I didn't like the system because it was taking their money, but killing somebody who's actually pretty fairly healthy, you know? And so, because cancer is just an imbalance, it doesn't mean you're not completely healthy, but doctors will make you feel like you're just close to your graveyard, you know? It's like, just go and stand there, you might as well, you know? So when I launched my business, one of the unique aspects of my work is that it's not just about, hey, eat this. I'm providing you support through the YouTube channel and teaching you, you know, Ayurveda and the most strongest holistic science, your lifestyle habits, through my video and recipes. But I'm also providing you actual tips like fasting and medicinal herbs. But what else can I do? So then I launched spiritual section for my business, like if you were to go on my website. So each newsletter that goes out, each narrative, each article is focused on certain what do you call it, like emotions, for example, the power of gratitude. You know, this is really
Yes.
powerful for cancer patients. It is like night and day, not just cancer, anybody going through trials and tribulations in life, like we all go through. Okay, I use empowering stories, near real life narratives, like people who I've met and how they are using their cancer diagnosis for their purpose. And because when you go into your purpose mode, or just like gratitude, it shifts your energy, because
It does.
it's no more like victimhood, it's more empowerment, so it shifts your energy. And so it's in each newsletter and through my, you know, what I teach, there's a whole section on spirituality, like mindfulness, you know. And another thing, I don't know if a lot of people know here, one of the powerful things that I tell people is just join the EFT organization. It's like emotional freedom technique, tapping on and releasing the emotions. It really works. So you can check that out if you're interested. It is EFT.com, something like that. And
Yes, I find that very helpful as well.
yes.
The first couple times it didn't work at all, and I'm like, this isn't going to work. But when you stay with something and you have the intention that it will help you to heal. In my case, I had an adrenal tumor. I forgot about that. I had an adrenal tumor. I pushed myself so hard working as the sole breadwinner of the family that I burned myself out pretty bad. So thankfully, I went to the Cleveland Clinic, and it was a benign tumor. So I didn't want to go to Orlando Health and have the tonsil surgeon that also does gallbladders take out my adrenal gland. You know, so advocating for yourself when you have a diagnosis, and honestly, I think it was a pheochromocytoma, but nobody gave me that diagnosis. The day before surgery, my blood pressure was 190 over something very high, like 120. And they had a conference right there in the anesthesiology. Do we admit her today and bring her blood pressure down before surgery? So anyway, it all turned out just fine for me. It has taken me a while to bounce back. But I want to get over to something that you said, Barry. You were talking about pushing emotions down. That's what I heard, but it wasn't necessarily how you phrased it. But I think you're absolutely right that we as a society, at least my generation, we pushed it all down. And I think we pushed through too much. And that's how I think I got my adrenal tumor. I wore the darn thing out. So recognizing that you're doing that, I think, is part of the healing process. So you can heal, but not necessarily be cured. And specifically what I mean by that, let's say you have a tiff with your brother and you haven't talked to him in 20 years, and now you have this diagnosis, and it brings you closer together. You've healed that relationship and the contact with that. There are many ways that that happens through cancer therapy. It's not necessarily curative, and you know, thank God you all survived your cancers. But there are other healing aspects to it. Do you have anything to add to that?
The only thing I was going to add to it is I don't think that the emotional journey just stops for the cancer patient once you have that, your treatment's complete. So the surgery or the rounds of chemotherapy, that's not the end of the journey. That is just one portion of the journey. You have, the follow-up phase, and you have the worry and the concern. Hey, am I going to have a reoccurrence, and what does that mean for me, and what does that mean for the people around me that love me? So the emotional piece, and I really appreciated Barry's comments, is that you continue to have to lean into that emotional piece and lean into that thought process of, where am I actually going with my thoughts? Are these healing thoughts, or are these thoughts that are actually going to bolster my system to actually be in fear, fight, or flight, and stimulate potential regrowth of the cancer? And so it's important, I think, from an emotional journey standpoint, when you're working with cancer patients, to understand it just doesn't end when the treatment ends. There's a whole component that needs to continue for those patients as they move farther and farther away from that initial diagnosis and interventions. That's a great perspective, because once the treatment is over, you're kind of left hanging, and then it's the 6-month checkup, and it's, my husband has a thyroid cancer survivor, and when those scans come around, it's like, here we go, and a sigh of relief, So I understand what you mean by that, and I think we let people go too soon. I think that you bring a perspective there that we should support people post-cancer in survivorship. World Cancer Day is in February. Survivorship Day in the U.S. is always the first Sunday in June. So, celebrate yourselves, really. You did the hard work, and you made the hard choices.
I just want to add really quickly, because when I worked in Methodist and University of Texas, it was all about, because I would meet the patients, and we had like 20-page questionnaires. So I was really the first point of contact to meet with them, just to go over if they have any questions, to make sure we have good data for clinical trials, that we were working on manuscripts. So I think one of the most important things that was missing and should be is teaching cancer patients and their families certain emotional tools, to balance their emotional and mental well-being. So, for example, having an EFT counselor there, it is nothing but holistic, and it works. Teaching them the power of words. Words matter. I am, and whatever follows after that, is that it? If I am sick, I am sick. If I'm healthy, I'm healthy. So teaching the power of affirmations in the morning when they wake up, teaching them meditation, yoga can be really powerful for them. I just want to act really quickly. I don't know who could be listening and who could just be benefited from this. This is a very powerful therapy that can overnight change your life and change your health and can heal your cancer. And that is having a glass of water. Because Dr. I think Emoto has proved that water molecules change according to our emotions, because we all are connected to the whole universe. Having a glass of water, saying powerful things to it. I'm healed, I'm whole, I'm healthy, I'm beautiful, I'm alive, I'm living a purposeful life. Leaving it overnight, for example, in the moon energy, and every single day, drinking it next day. However the water goes, if you're angry, upset, depressed, that water molecule goes into all cells, and your cells dance to it, okay? If you drink water that is empowering, because we are made up of water, so is that. It changes that. This is a very powerful, scientifically proven therapy to healing yourself.
That's a really practical thing that all of us here can do, whether we're cancer survivors or not. I think we're basically walking around dehydrated, especially now that we're in the desert. So I like that.
Things to the water, it will do the work. It's that simple,
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, very good. Any other questions or concerns? We're done. He's like, okay, we're done. Listen, thank you all so much. You all brought a wonderful perspective to this.